Hey guys, Blue here, and despite the fact that we are not going to see his deck perform in the Battle City uh, recreation, we do have the deck profile for Rare Hunter Bandit Keith's deck. Um, so it took place just before the tournament, um, and it played in the old Duelist Kingdom format in a Duelist Kingdom arena that they had somehow snuck into Domino City. But this was the the first time we've seen Keith since he was kicked out in Duelist Kingdom. Ended up with Rare Hunters, and I call him Rare Hunter Keith because it's where his placement was. Although I feel he wasn't really one of the true Rare Hunters, he kind of got conned into it because, you know, Marik was just kind of messing with him and like using him as a prop. Whereas later on, the people that were Rare Hunters were more dedicated to the cause. Nevertheless, he used a really cool new deck with a lot of new monsters, a lot of strong monsters, but still machine heavy, which is what ultimately gave him away to Yugi when he had been in the hood and the shadows the whole time. So again, it's a duel that Delta and I felt we didn't quite need to do for the Battle City tournament. Even though we did Joey versus Seeker, that took place a little bit like right before the tournament, and that is also the event that cost Joey his red eyes. Whereas the Yugi versus Keith was just kind of more to introduce the Rare Hunter concept a bit. But anyway, so going through his deck is again a lot of strong monsters. So Mechanical Chaser tops out as almost 1900, which is really I'd say the highest we see generally in as far as normal monsters. So Mechanical Chaser starts off the deck with strength, and coming up afterwards is Megasonic Eye. Some of these monsters are really cool and were some of my favorites, you know, from the anime and when they came to print. Now, of course, this is the reprint of Megasonic Eye. The original version was in the first McDonald's promotion. So it was kind of cool that, you know, McDonald's was giving out cards way back when, and one of them was this guy. Ground Attacker Bloodgrowth. So again, this is actually so far the weakest of the machines. All the ones previously had either high attack, high defense. This one's a 15 and then 1000 defense. So nothing too strong, but still something to go into the grinder, I guess. Next up is his last normal monster, and this is Seiharu. So originally a video game promo, but tying in attack with Dark Magician, this is not a monster that really, you know, should be written off as far as these character duels go. So like Yugi's Dark Magician, a monster to watch out for. 2 Cyber Jar, a very early version of this deck, and this deck also is probably one of the decks you've had around for a while, because again, having a lot of my favorite monsters, it's a deck we really wanted to build a while ago. But we found 3 Cyber Jars was a little bit much, so 2 keeps the deck a little bit more balanced. And again, because these decks have come out over such a long period of time, and they didn't have a consistent wave format, because that came quite a bit later. That's partly why we're doing the Battle City, is so that we do reformat these and you guys can actually see in chronological order the duels and then the deck profiles. But again, this is one deck profiles that is so old because it was such, you know, an old deck that nothing's really changed in this as much, but still, you know, a nicer, cleaner deck profile. So 2 Machine King, he was the first one to use Machine King. This card, of course, came back later with Nesbit in the Virtual World story arc. But again, just I've always liked machine type monsters. So to me, this deck was one of my favorites. Now the next monster is the only non-machine. Actually, Sarvager's a rock, go figure. But really not machine themed much, I guess, then, is Zira the Mant. One of my all-time favorite monsters, kind of up there actually with Hannibal Necromancer. I'm really not sure where to put them, kind of. relation to each other. But yeah, Zero the Man, and we did go with 3 because it was more of his trump monster that he really built up to. That and being a ritual. In this deck, there's plenty of monsters to use for ritual fodder, but at the same time, being a ritual, it does need to have 2 cards to be summoned plus the monsters. And because there's no 8-star in this deck aside from himself, you likely will need at least 2 monsters to summon him. So 2800 attack makes him the highest attack monster in this deck and beats out something like Yugi's Dark Magician or a Summon Skull. So in character deck duels, this is definitely a beast of a card. So starting off the spell lineup is Curse of Fiend, a unique spell card in that you can activate it during the standby phase, only during the standby phase, and it just switches the position of all the monsters. So very helpful when you have some real powerhouses like Zero. 3 Graceful Charity. So I believe Keith was the character to introduce Graceful Charity. That made many appearances throughout the rest of the anime. Next up is 3 Machine Conversion Factory. So this deck is mostly triplicates. A couple exceptions in the monsters, but like so many of the decks, it's built on triplicates to get a 40-card deck, primarily the character's own cards. This is not a deck that we really had to plug a lot of filler into, unlike some other characters, but they still turned out great. So 3 Stop Defense, 3 Tribute to the Doomed. So this deck has no shortage of ways around monsters, and then 3 Zero Rituals. So, I mean, overall the deck it's not hard to summon Zero, but again, still it's a few more steps than perhaps some of the other monsters. So going to the traps, there's only 2 different trap cards. It's 3 Magic Jammers, so he has ways around spells. And then the last card, very wisely at 1, is Solemn Judgment, because it's OP. It can stop anything. So definitely keep the deck in balance. 1 Solemn Judgment. So again, Keith's deck is, definitely Machines 2.0 versus his Duelist Kingdom deck. And while they did play this in Duelist Kingdom format, this deck actually is very viable in the modern format that was introduced in Battle City, that is really the actual card game format of, tributing for high-level monsters. Whereas his Duelist Kingdom deck was so full of high-level monsters that, with the exception of Blast Sphere, he couldn't really summon anything in a regular duel format. So Keith's deck is a maybe a proxy rare hunter packed with some really cool looking and some pretty good machine type monsters. So again, I'm sorry that we didn't do the duel. Hopefully it's not too much level letdown for some of you, because there's still going to be so many duels and deck profiles to come. So make sure you stay tuned and keep checking us out. Like, comment, subscribe, and see you guys next time.